for it in a long time. I think his flow is really good in it, and I like his aggressiveness on it. And
the Bulldog
put not enough effort in it. I think overall his flow was good, but I don't like that mobile wrapping. That was my review of
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Didn't need the spritzer. Wasn't fire enough. No spritzer for you. No spritzer.
Did the Bills draft a linebacker? They didn't, right? I was looking at the bet board right over there. I don't know what you can see, but in this space, there is a very old dry erase board with all the bets we've made in here with each other over the years. And the one on the top, because the previous one on the top was the Milrow bet that for Bulldog was ill-fated. He's on a plane today. What will the Bills draft earlier? Sneaky Joe said running back. Jeremy said linebacker. They did neither. That is a push. That is one of the rare pushes in the history of the bet board. I'm not sure there's ever been one. Some of these bets last for many years. Right under it is my bet with Sneaky Joe that Ryan Tannehill starts and wins a Super Bowl someday at 20-1. What happened to that guy? Not Joe. What happened to Ryan Tannehill? He just decided to not play anymore and not tell anybody? Like, for all the quarterback needy teams, never to him, I guess. I missed the days of hearing everybody mention how he played wide receiver in college. I miss Ryan Tannehill. But see, that one is still up there. There's going to be resolution on that. We'll get to the Bills. Horse racing is on in here. Sam Panayotovich coming up at 3:30. DK Horse, the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it's fine, right? The Derby, it's fine. It's either, at worst, it's fine. At the most, it's amazing, and you live for it, and you dress up and drink mint juleps and bet everything. At the minimum, it's a nice, a party. It's something to watch, something to put on. It's, it's special. It's important. The Kentucky Derby, like that's the floor for the Kentucky Derby. I have it on in whatever today is, the day before the Derby, the Oaks, whatever it is. Like, I've got that on in here. It's kind of cool to look at. I just learned that Post 17 has never won. And that's the one, I believe, the one slot that has been used regularly all these years. It's like 90-some years and has never won. And the second favorite in the race tomorrow is in Post 17, Sandman, which, by the way, is one word. Because yesterday we had the thing about how a one-word named horse is like a big favorite to win. One of the single-name horses, Rodriguez, was scratched, so maybe that's different now. Sam will know. Also, the horse, don't know the name or the year. The horse to have run the fastest quarter mile in the history of the Kentucky Derby finished last out of 20 horses in his race, or hers. Fastest quarter mile in Derby history. Probably, like right out of the gate? And just like, I'm done. 20th out of 20. Okay. Well, I've got 4 guests today in Bulldog's absence. Sam Panayotovich, who I mentioned. Sal will join me. Tyler Dunn will join me. And as we get closer to the Bandits game tonight, great to have Dave Buchanan stop by and give us a preview. It has been Brandon Beane week. We've talked so much about him. He's talked a lot about us. He's talked a lot to a lot of people. Like I don't know. I've gotten the sense this week, because the thing happened in here on Monday morning, and then he was on Monday afternoon, and then he was on the next day, and then he was on McAfee, and he was like, then it's Tyler Dunn for an hour, and Tyler's like, time to go. He's like, no, let's keep going. Tyler will give us that story later. This is not a criticism. I actually personally appreciate it. He seems to want himself out there. And I don't know if you think that's a change. I mean, it's been quite a lot here this week. And I don't know, do you think about this? Like maybe this offseason or just in general? Like Beane has never been to me somebody who is unwilling. We've never, like with Terry Pagula, it's like, where'd he go? He's had however many press conferences over the year, but half of them seem to like be a disaster. not including the one where he promised Stanley Cups for the Sabres and talked about how it wouldn't be about money anymore, and holy cow. So, with Terry, it's like, where'd he go? With Beane has never been invisible or anything close to that. And, Kevin Adams, too. At least they're out there. They'll take your questions. And I like both of these guys for that. But has Beane ramped it up here lately? I wonder. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe that's just sort of a misperception on my part, maybe based on the fact that we've been talking about him all week. But here's a possible theory. And it ties with what he was saying on Monday and just how, brazen he was about it, or even obnoxious he was about it. And that I wonder if Beane, 8 years in with this team and a lot of winning and the agonizingly close playoff losses that have capped their seasons, I wonder if he's sort of ready to either up his profile or just kind of put his neck out a little bit more. I wouldn't want to say with any sort of mind toward a new, opportunity somewhere else or anything like that. I bet that's just a needless wild guess. But it does seem to me to be something how not only how much he's talking this year, but what Monday was, which was, I am not worried about your reaction to me. And that is a powerful thing in life. If you can get to a point where, and it can come off badly, and I think his appearance on Monday did, but what I think is kind of refreshing about it in sports, for an executive in sports or a coach or even a player, to just kind of give you the sense that he's not worried about what happens next. He's not worried about what you think. And man, for a radio host, that is gold. That's what you want every time. But he's had winning teams, and as Bulldog says too, he's had a very smooth ride here. I don't think there's any question about that. I will not listen to any sort of idea that he's had it tough. Remember when Tyrod Taylor, either after he left the Bills or toward the end of his career with the Bills at a Super Bowl one time, talked about how hard the media was, and I just could not believe it. I could not believe it. Who was Tyrod Taylor? He was an okay quarterback that had never had a chance to start before in the league. And, I think it's pretty easy for players and coaches, if they aren't sort of smart, I want to say, quote, smart about it. I think it'd be pretty easy for them to get really bothered, because any criticism you hear is the thing you remember. That's what sticks to you. And the compliments bounce off. But it's the criticism that you take home and you think about, and that can be a bad thing. It can be a problem. I think there's a pretty tough needle to thread with this, and I don't know. Everybody's different. I have some experience with this, being that I'm in a position where I get criticized, I get feedback, and it's a personal thing, how you deal with it. I remember with Darcy Regier all those years, what Darcy would say, and I don't know, maybe he was being honest. I never knew him that well either. What he would say was how he wouldn't listen to it. Wouldn't listen to us, wouldn't listen to fans. And, I think that's probably a combination of two things. If it's true, it's that that it can bother you. And you don't want that in your life. If you can avoid it, you don't. If you can avoid it, then you don't want it. Then I can't. But I did always say with him, and I would say with anybody, I think it's important though to know what the fans are saying, or even the media. The media is how many people, and it's all kinds of different opinions. But I think I would want, if I were Brandon Beane or Regier at those in those years, Adams, I'd want to know what is being said about me, but I'd have to put a limit on it. Maybe I'd have somebody do that for me and not just turn the station on when I drove home or anything like that. I don't know. It's all kind of beside the point. The point is that Beane is right now, he sounds like he's up for it. He wants to do battle. And, there's a few things you might consider if there's a general accuracy to that. Is he trying to put his own stamp on it that hasn't been sort of afforded to him, or he's not gotten really credit for, in his mind, enough of what's happened. Is there, like, are Beane and McDermott maybe in different places, and this would be one person's way of sort of, I don't know, announcing that in a certain indirect way? I'm doing this, and I think your criticism of it is ridiculous. Here is why I'm doing it. And, defiant, right out there, not afraid of the consequences. I think, I just wonder. I don't know. I just wonder if he's at a place where he wants to sort of get more in the spotlight, maybe, than he's been. Which, again, I don't think that's bad. I think the story for a lot of this week has been what he said Monday morning. Here we are on Friday evening. What he said on Monday morning and how he did it. And that really took everybody aback. Even if he talks Monday morning and all these other times in the usual way. Yeah, we looked at wide receiver. We thought about it. We always do. We always want to do anything that's we think in our best interest. But this, and this led us to defense, so that's what we did. An easy response to a question that nobody would even care about. Nobody would talk about. Like that. That's the kind of thing where you don't even need to say it, because that's clearly what, it's what happened. And we would assume the rest of what you said. Instead he got sideways. But anyway, what they did was the same. And what they did was, as he explained there and with Tyler and probably everywhere else, is this is where I think we needed the most help. And I think almost everybody would agree with it. The question isn't whether they needed more help on defense. The question is whether that help is sort of valuable, so to speak, on the same level as like an alpha receiver would be, or, maybe not alpha even available in this draft. But that's the debate more than it is whether their defense really, nobody thought, I think nobody would say that they didn't need the help. So, fine. And so that's where he put his chips. And when he talked about it, other than the one time Monday morning when it just turned into something else, when he talked about it, it was reasonable. What he said to Tyler Dunn at one point, I'm going to read it. GoLongTD.com. Tyler will be on with me later. I'll go back to this is a quote. I'll go back to what I said. I had no issue with the wide receiver question all year. But after the season, and I added Josh Palmer, I thought everybody should have moved on from wide receiver. Let's get after Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. If you want to break down where our road has come to an end, we haven't gotten those quarterbacks on the ground. This, I think, might be interesting. So I'm in the sacks are a quarterback stat camp. I think that's been generally proven. It's not just sacks that work here. It's pressure. It's disrupting the pocket. It's all the kind of things that don't have to be sacks to be, good. I looked up times sacked, quarterbacks sacked since the 2018 playoffs, just in the playoffs. So 7 years. The three quarterbacks he mentioned are the three most sacked quarterbacks in the playoffs since 2018. I just picked 18 because Mahomes was in the playoffs then, and so was Lamar, and Allen was about to be. That's arbitrary, but I just picked 18. Mahomes has been sacked 17 times more than any other quarterback in the playoffs since then. Now, of course, they've played the most games. It's 21 games, and it's 46 sacks. So what is that? 2.2 sacks per game. Allen, who is fourth, and he's played 13, which I think is the second most, I know it is, playoff games in these last 7 years. Actually, you know who third is? Most playoff starts in the NFL the last 7 years. Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Brady is 3 with 11 games. Anyway, Allen has been sacked 28 times in those 13 games, almost identical to the rate of Mahomes. Allen isn't the point. The point is, Beane mentioned 3 names: Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson. Now, they haven't lost to Baltimore in the playoffs. Jackson is like 3.5 sacks per game. He's different. Mahomes is, or rather, Burrow is over 4. 7 games, 29 sacks. Allen again, 28 in 13 games. Burrow has been sacked more often in the playoffs than Allen, despite playing 6 fewer games. I don't know how many times the Bills sacked Burrow in that game. I didn't look that up. Could it have been many? I didn't look that up. Somewhere along the way, Joe Burrow's been sacked 29 times in 7 playoff games. He kind of has that reputation. Mahomes, 46. So here we go. The Chiefs have played 21 playoff games with him. 4 against Buffalo. In the other 17, he's been sacked 41 times for 267 yards. 2.4 sacks per game for 15 yards. So 6 to 7 yards per sack. Like, those are real sacks. Sometimes a guy runs out of bounds for 0. That's a sack. Mahomes, 2.4 sacks per game in the playoffs against teams other than the Bills for 15 yards per game. Against the Bills in 4 games, in the playoffs only, he's been sacked 5 times for 20 yards. Total. So that's an average of 1.25 sacks per game for 5 yards. The Bills have done 5 sack yards of damage against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs ever. Per game. 4 games, 20 yards. So, like, kind of the... Now I don't even think this was really up for debate so much. I wanted to know the disparity, and I got what I wanted. Like, the Bills have not gotten him to the ground. And I think we knew that. But really, what it maybe illustrates is the worthiness... No, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. The worthiness of Beane's strategy and his point about getting those players to the ground. Ultimately, if they play them again, and I think this is like sort of the last call for the Bills, for Beane's sake, and maybe McDermott's, to be able to actually do it. If they do play them again, that's also debatable, whether it will be. But it's whether or not they can actually achieve that, whether it's Mahomes or someone else. Can they get what they want from this draft, which is to put these elite quarterbacks that are beating them on the ground in the playoffs? And then, if you want to just get your head going, spinning, forever, then you compare whatever the value of that might be with the wide receiver stuff, and that's where we get into trouble. Because, again, this week, it's not been about whether the Bills have put enough pressure on these quarterbacks in the playoffs. Nobody thinks they have. Nobody disagrees with Brandon Beane on that. It's always about what that is versus other needs or, supposed needs. And then when it comes to the draft, well, what does the draft give you? And again, I think nobody really is arguing with Beane too much that this draft was going to give you defense, and it did. And the Bills scooped it up. Patrick Mahomes, 46 postseason games. No, 21. Why do I keep looking at the wrong column? 21. Oh, it's because it seems like 46. 21 postseason games, 46 sacks. 4 of those games against Buffalo, only 5 of those sacks for a total of 20 yards. I mean, come on. You didn't know this already? You did. You didn't need the numbers on this one. It hasn't happened. And so this bet is, and Beane is right out there, explaining it and telling you it's not subtle. It's not guesswork. This is what we want from this draft, and this is what we need. And so now it just becomes, will they get it? And we can't even begin to answer that. Well, we can't know the answer until at least January. That's the regular season is just going to kind of be there. Again, this is a year where the regular season can only be a disappointment because, like, they're supposed to make it. They're supposed to win the AFC East again. If they don't, it'll be kind of maybe shocking. So that's a tough one because you really can't score points. You can't really impress in the regular season when you're the Bills these days. It's only about the playoffs, and I guess the playoffs are sort of the other way around when you can't really, I don't want to say you can't do worse, but your thing has become rolling through the division, and then when you step up against Kansas City or the one-time Cincinnati, it's really the Chiefs, you get beat. It's been a lot of talk. It's been interesting. Mostly this week. Maybe we went pretty far on it, and I'm not here by any of this trying to start another conversation up. I just thought this is what he's really saying, and the style with which he spoke on Monday isn't maybe the most important takeaway. It's what did they actually do? He spelled it out, and now it's just about whether or not if they face Kansas City in the playoffs again, will they actually, like Philadelphia sacked him 6 times. Are we looking at that? Or are we looking at 1 for 5 yards again? That's because that's been the Bills' playoff history when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. Not to mention the lack of takeaways and just how he's basically done whatever he wanted in those games. Today, Sam Panayotovich, Bet Sweats, talking NFL, the Derby, the playoffs. Sal Capaccio at 4. Tyler Dunn joins me at 5. Dave Buchanan will be between the benches tonight for the Bandits game against Vancouver. Will join me at 5:30. Thanks for listening. Sammy P is next. Bulldog is off through Monday. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. Sandman, officially one word for betting purposes at the Kentucky Derby. The second choice from the 17, which is the one slot that's not slot, is it? Post position that has never won the Derby. Maybe tomorrow. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. On the line now, the West Her Hotline. In fact, the host of Bet Sweats, Odyssey Sports betting insider Sam Panayotovich. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Check out the latest lines today on the BetMGM app, and be sure to catch Bet Sweats live 9 to noon weekdays on the BetMGM network and the Odyssey app. Hi, Sam.
Hey, buddy.
What are you into today?
I have a bet in the Oaks. Actually, two bets in the Oaks. That, of course, is the Friday special at Churchill Downs. And I bet, let's see, the 2-horse, Simply Joking, and the 7-horse, Lacara. They're both longer shots, like 8-1, both. The favorite is Good Cheer, 7-5, and I'm keying him out because everybody's on the favorite. But I do have a bet that goes off at 5:51 Eastern. I know you're all ready for DK Horse.
Yeah. Yes.
I bet 50 on the 2 and 50 on the 7. We'll see what happens.
Is there an MGM horse I should mention instead from now on? Forward?
There's not. Nope, they didn't pay the piper, I don't think. So look, there's like a different license for sports and horse. So I don't think they felt the need to get into it. You can now if you're in Vegas and you're at Mandalay or MGM, like they do have race books there, but I don't believe you can bet. I should know that, but I'm almost positive. Like I'm looking at BetMGM right now on the app. I don't see a single slot for horses. And when you go A through Z, there's no horse. It goes handball, hockey, lacrosse. So I think we're off the hook on MGM. But look, people use TVG. People use local guys. It sort of is what it is. There's still an OTB around the corner from my old apartment back when I lived in Chicago. So there's plenty of ways to get down on the horsies.
No doubt. Is there either a favorite of yours or just even maybe a best way to bet horse racing? I mean, the point about leaving the favorite out is we all enjoy that practice no matter what we're betting. But, whether it's win, play, show, exacta, different combinations, is there a best way to go?
Yeah, the simplest way, I feel, for people that are getting into this maybe for the first time or the second time is the exacta box. And what that is, you can pick as many horses as you want. You can pick 3, you could pick 6, you could pick 8. The more you pick, the more difficult it is to win bigger money because you're making more bets, and only 2 horses can finish 1-2. So, for example, I'm going to give you a lot of numbers here. People may have to go back to the Odyssey app and hit the rewind feature, but I like the favorite, ironically enough, in this race. Eddie Olczyk was on our show this week. He's high on journalism, the favorite, who's currently 7-2 right now on the odds screen, so plus 350 for you sports bettors. I did a 6-horse exacta box. It's a $3 bet, so the ticket costs $90. And what I did, Mike, is I put journalism in this exacta box with these 5 horses. The 3, Final Gambit, the 9, Burnham Square, the 14, Tiz-tastic, another Eddie O horse, the 18, Sovereignty, and the 21, Baeza. Now, those horses all have one thing in common. They're closers. My handicap of the race, which could be right, could be wrong, I think the favorite is the class. The favorite's going to pull away late, and then the gap will be made up by one of those 5 horses, 3, 9, 14, 18, 21, to come from the middle and finish second. That's how I see it playing out. That's my logic. Again, could be right, could be wrong. So what I'm hoping for is that it goes 8-3, 8-9, 8-14, 8-18, or 8-21. I get all those bets. I'm also, though, because it's an exacta box, I'm protected if the 8 finishes in second. So it could be 3-8, 9-8, 14-8. It could also be 3-9, 9-3. I get all those numbers, all 6 numbers, and 2 of them have to finish first or second.
Okay, so that's going to be 12 bets?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, that's not going to break you. All right.
No, it's not bad. Like I said, a $3 exacta box is going to run you $90. And that's the most common question I get all week. I have a lot of friends that will text me twice a year, Who do I like in the Masters? And I have $100 to lose in the Derby. What do I do? And I always respond, because I'm that kind of guy, and I say, look, make that $3 exacta-box bet. Here are the 6 horses. It'll cost you $90. But the good thing about those horses that I gave you outside of the 8, the 3 is 16-1, the 9 is 16-1, the 14 is 18-1, the 18 is 9-1, and the 21 is 19-1. So if one of those 5 hits the board with the 8, the odds explode.
Right on. You know, it's, of course, also playoff season here, NBA, NHL. We've talked about, in the hockey playoffs, Washington a time or two, and I told you how I'd be betting against them every round. Well, I'm 0 for 1 with the Capitals beating Montreal in the so-called gentleman's sweep, 5 games. It's still not decided in the West. A couple of series have yet to finish. Any thoughts on things so far, or odds for round 2? Florida is a pretty good favorite against Toronto.
Yeah, I saw that price, and I did a double take. You know, you would think that the team without home ice would not be $1.80, but okay, Florida, the reigning champs and the 2-time East champ, I guess, $1.80, $1.85. Toronto gets home ice. I think there was a lot of people that are expecting Toronto to annually flame out, and you understand that. I don't know, man. I'm not laying $1.80. Here's what I think the advice in that series would be. I haven't made a bet on it, but I think the move would be to just wait it out and see if Toronto can win that first game. Because remember, Toronto has home ice, so Toronto plays game 1 in Canada. If Toronto wins game 1, I would then jump in maybe on Florida down 1-0. That way I don't have to lay 180. I might be able to get -110, -115. I want no part of laying 180 in a playoff series. And look no further than some of these series in the NBA where you had a team like the Lakers laying -200. Timberwolves win that series in 5. Another series that I think a lot of people were really intrigued by, Clippers and the Nuggets. Nuggets opened $1.90. Everybody bet the Clippers down, and here we go to Game 7. So I've never been a fan of laying these big prices in series. It's a different conversation when you talk about maybe the Celtics or the Cavs, 2 teams that are not losing. But I would, if you like Florida, I would wait, see if they lose game 1, and then jump in live.
The 2 sports are very different for this. You know, like the odds of a favorite winning in the NBA playoffs, especially early, I mean, it's very rare when they don't, like a good favorite. Whereas in hockey, at least, you know, in theory, other years, I mean, Washington did get there. The top 2 teams in the Atlantic Division both advanced. I mean, you expect more from the underdogs.
Certainly in hockey. It's such a random sport. You know, one puck bounces one way and everything changes. I'm looking right now just to speak about this out loud. Oh, they won't even let me parlay that at MGM. See, they're smart about that because it's going to win. Let me see if I can go somewhere else and parlay this series. I was thinking about the Cavs to win and the Celtics to win, -250. I mean, look, Mike, I don't love laying 250 every day, but are the Knicks or Pacers really going to win? No, it feels like we've been headed for Bucks, for Celtics Cavs all season long in the East.
With Sam Panayotovich, I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. It's been an interesting week here, Sam. We woke up Monday morning and the GM of the Bills, Brandon Beane, jumped on WGR and just ripped some of our guys and anybody who thinks that the Bills have just been not serious enough at wide receiver. We've basically been talking about that all week. Anytime you look, though, at odds, you know, win total, playoff percentage, the Bills might be the biggest favorite they've ever been. 11.5 wins, -150 to win 12 or more games. Pro Football Network put them at 97% to make the playoffs. All of this, the whole referendum on the stuff he was talking about will show up in the playoffs. But right now, win totals-wise, futures-wise, the Bills are a super chalk team.
Division blows. That's the truth. And I remember the first time you, Bulldog, and myself all hopped on the phone, either the first or second time, I said, honestly, Buffalo's in that pattern now where they're the Patriots of 10 years ago. They're just so much better than everybody in the East. And it feels like French doors to a first-round playoff game. And barring some catastrophic injury to a player that I will not name because I'm not going to throw that voodoo on your station. But, I mean, as long as he stays healthy, they're fine. They're just too good on both ends of the ball. I'm a big fan of their coach, even though some people might not be. My issue with Buffalo has just been the postseason depth, getting deep, and I don't need to wax poetic on WGR. Everybody else knows. I mean, the goal here is to get to a Super Bowl. That's a much different ask, though, than winning one of the weakest divisions in football. I mean, think about the Jets, who are going to come in with a first-year head coach and a new quarterback, Justin Fields. Miami, who gets softer by the minute. It's like an ice cream cone melting on a summer day. Like they can't tackle on defense. They can't block on offense. Their coach is the smartest guy in the room. Just ask him. And a quarterback that can't stay on the field. And then, look, New England's getting a lot of money. I will say this. I talked to a guy in Vegas yesterday who books bets, and he said our sharpest players have bet the Patriots over the win total. Now, are they going to challenge Buffalo for a division title? No. But a win total right now on New England, 7.5 over -150 at a couple Vegas places. Remember, Mike, their win total last year was 4.5. To make them 7.5 and have that juiced at -150 tells you that people that are smarter than me are betting it. And they did have a pretty decent offseason. But all that said, guys like Stephon Diggs and Travion Henderson and Will Campbell and Harold Landry and, guys like that, like Milton Williams from the Eagles and win the Super Bowl, like they brought all those guys to New England. It's going to make the team a lot better, and Vrabel knows how to win. But at the end of the day, man, nobody holds a candle to Buffalo in the East.
Kyle Williams as well, rookie wide receiver that they drafted. I think you mentioned last week that we would want to talk about Rookie of the Year in the NFL, like eventually, maybe not as soon as today. I'm sorry if you're not prepared to do that. But I've got 12 fantasy drafts that start tomorrow. 11 are rookie drafts. So I'm totally like rookies on the brain. It really is like Christmas, Sam. Tomorrow is like one of the great days for me. But just comparing landing spots and everything else, you mentioned Henderson there with New England. He's interesting. Do you have any early thoughts on Rookie of the Year?
I bet it right away, once I could. I bet on Marion Hampton, Charger running back.
Okay.
They were ecstatic. I went back and I watched the press conference. It was Ortiz, the GM, and Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, of course. And they were both basically saying, we never thought he would fall here. I could only imagine being a fly on the wall in the Charger draft room when the Broncos, who were not going to pass up on Hampton, passed up on Hampton, and he fell a couple slots lower. This is a guy who might have a better shake than any rookie coming into a new team and a new system. Now, look, I'm not saying he's going to be the best player from this draft, but think about how the Chargers have built this team over the last 4 or 5 years. It's been all offensive line. They go out and they get Rashawn Slater in the first round of 21, play left tackle, Pro Bowl left tackle. They draft Zion Johnson first in 22, left guard. They draft Joe Alt last year, 24, first round. They bring in Becton, who just played with the Eagles, won a Super Bowl. They have literally, Mike, built this offensive line to be one of the best in the league. They have a quarterback that should take a next step, Justin Herbert. They found Hampton and probably almost fainted because he's a 3-down back. He can hit the tackles. He can go outside. He can catch passes. I think by week 4, and I know what you're going to say, they have Najee Harris. Najee Harris belongs at the tire yard. Najee Harris is on a 1-year deal. That's not a long-term plan. I think by week 4, Harbaugh's going to realize with a team that wants to run the ball and a coordinator in Greg Roman that's going to force the run, they're going to give Hampton the ball 20 to 25 times a game. Behind that line with that quarterback on that team, 16-1 on Hampton is a really good bet, man. I think we're going to see that number closer to 8 or 10 by opening day.
16-1. Where does that rank?
Crazy, right? Yeah, 16-1. He's like 5th or 6th on the board.
Genty, McMillan, Cam Ward, Hunter.
Yeah, let's see. So Ward is your favorite, naturally. Oh, wow. No, they bet Genty the favorite. Okay, so that happened in the last day or so. Genty plus 230, Ward 330, Travis Hunter 950. I don't know if he gets enough snaps on offense. He's going to play both ways. Hampton is now, look at that. This book has Hampton 12-1. So people have been listening to Bet Sweats. But look, anything north of 12-1, anything 14, 15-1, I would bet anything with a 1 in front of it. He is going to be the rookie to play in this market. And look, I've hit guys in the past. I've hit some guys at 20-1. I never play the favorites. Cam Ward has no help. That team is going to stink. And Genty has no offensive line in Vegas. given the system and the players around him, Hampton's the bet.
What's R.J. Harvey?
R.J. Harvey is, let's see, I see 25-1, I see 30-1.
Love it. I think what Hampton has, well, I mean, Hampton was a better prospect too, generally speaking, but Hampton has the Harbaugh-Roman piece. Genty has Sean Payton, which isn't bad, and there's no Najee Harris. I do think Harris will have a role with the Chargers. That could be red zone. He never gets hurt. It's $5 million, but your scenario is Hampton blows him away by week 4. We'll see. Harvey has nobody to compete with him in that backfield, and he's not a big guy, but it's also 25-1.
I don't think I would fight you on any of the running backs at double figures. So Joe likes Henderson. I like Judkins a little bit, although, it really is – it's a great rookie on a good team. So if your team stinks, you usually don't get there, unfortunately. So I have my concerns about Cleveland. I also think Denver is going to take a little step back because those second-year quarterbacks, Bo Nix comes to mind, is a guy who now the league has tape on, and you can study all those games and you can prepare. And, that was always the old Ken Griffey analogy. I come in as a rookie. I do it big. Then the league adjusts to me. Then I have to adjust to the adjustments. You see that a lot in the NFL with second-year quarterbacks. Like C.J. Stroud last year was really struggling early in the year. They made the playoffs, but the division was awful. I don't hate a bet on Hampton, Judkins, Henderson, your guy Harvey. I think it's a great year for these running backs on decent teams, but Hampton's my favorite.
Thank you, Sam. Good luck this weekend.
All right, guys. Journalism, the 8. I hate the favorites, but I think it's the play, buddy.
You hate the favorites, but you love and respect journalism. I think we can say that.
And I love and respect you. How about that?
Thank you, Sam. That's so kind.
Yeah.
Sam Panayotovich, Bet Sweats, Odyssey Sports Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. For all your betting needs, check out the newly rebranded BetMGM network on the Odyssey app. Sal joins me at 4. Mike Schopp here, WGR. Welcome back. It's the Bandits at home to Vancouver tonight on WGR. Pregame at 7, and it starts at 7:30. Dave Buchanan, who, as always, will be on the broadcast, joins me at 5:30. I've got lacrosse on my calendar this weekend, tomorrow afternoon. My son plays Sunday morning. So, yes, big lacrosse weekend. And coming up to that very cool time of year in that sport on the college level with conference tournament playoffs. Then it always wraps up on Memorial Day once the tournament gets going. It's some sort of a staple, right? Not everybody knows about it or pays close attention, but I always remember the lacrosse championship game, NCAA, being late morning, early afternoon on Memorial Day, which is a great holiday. Got to lock it in for 80 and sunny. I'm saying it now every year, Memorial Day. There was one year where it rained, and we decided not to acknowledge it. Sal coming up in about 10 minutes. You know, one complaint I know we may share about the show this week is just not enough fantasy. And I accept that. I'm not kidding when I say to Sam, if you play in a dynasty league, so year round, and you keep your team together, tomorrow is, you don't have to start it tomorrow, but the post-NFL draft, rookie draft, is such a great day. And when I mentioned to Sam, and I mentioned to Bulldog before he ran out of the room once I did so earlier this week, that I'm in 12. 11 are these rookie drafts, and they're what are called slow drafts. So it's not like you're juggling 11 traditional fast fantasy football drafts. You're all in the same room. It's not like that. You get 8 hours to make a pick. So they stretch out over a few weeks, and I just love it. Tomorrow morning is where, on the one site where I play a lot, they all start. 11 of them start at different times, and I just so can't wait. It is football does this. I mentioned listening to The School of Scott with Scott Barrett, who's been on with us a few times, and he had the gentleman from Coach Speak Index, which is a fun, novel site in the space, on his show, and they broke down press conferences, all the post-draft press conferences from every team, 4 hours of content. I think it was Greg, Scott's guest, who said that the NFL has a way of giving you every year a lot of different Christmases. And for a dynasty fantasy player, tomorrow is definitely one. So, the draft is one. Last Thursday night is like Christmas, maybe the schedule for you. Sal and I both enjoy that very much. He'll be on with me next. Got a couple of thoughts on that for him. Camp, of course, week 1, Super Bowl, a lot of them. A lot of Christmases. And this year, adding to the Christmas list of Christmases, Christmas. Last year, I guess, is when that started. But 3 games every year going forward. I think there's a pretty good chance the Bills will be one of the 3 this year. All right, a break here, and then Sal, Tyler Dunn, and Dave Buchanan as well as we go through the day. This is Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off. Thanks for listening to WGR.
The Buffalo Bandits are in action tonight at home at KeyBank Center for Game 1 of the NLL semifinals. They take on the Vancouver Warriors. Game time at 7:30, and pregame right here on WGR will get underway at 7. First 10,000 fans tonight will receive a playoff rally towel. You can get your tickets at bandits.com. Game 2 is going to be Sunday in Vancouver. But for more on the Bandits, do stay tuned, as at 5:30, Dave Buchanan will join the show. Just 2 playoff games tonight between the NHL and the NBA. For the NHL, it's Game 6 between Winnipeg and St. Louis. It's at 8. The game is in St. Louis. Winnipeg, though, can advance with a win. The Rangers have their next head coach. They officially announced the hiring of Mike Sullivan. Sullivan spent the last 10 years as the Penguins head coach. While in the NBA, another Game 6. This time it's Warriors and Rockets at 9. The Warriors can advance with a win and are hosting Houston. But the big news in the NBA, Greg Popovich is stepping down as head coach of the San Antonio Spurs after 29 years. In those years, Popovich won 5 NBA championships. He will, though, be staying with the organization, serving now as team president, while the next Spurs head coach will be coming from within, as longtime assistant Mitch Johnson will assume the role. The 151st Kentucky Derby is tomorrow. Tune in for a special edition of Sports Talk Saturday. Brian Koziel will be live from Batavia Downs from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., and coverage is going to be throughout the afternoon, with the men event expected to go off at 6:57 p.m. And then in baseball, Bisons are in Iowa against the Cubs just after 8. That game's going to be on our sister station, the Bet 1520. While the majors just after 7, the Yankees host the Rays and the Blue Jays host the Red Sox. Then at 8:15, the Mets are in St. Louis versus the Cardinals. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
You know, here I am just trying to do my best. Finally, Bulldog takes a day off so I can complain. Trying to do my best. You know, I don't see him making mock schedules. He's not putting his neck out there. I am. Here it is. Like, I made a mock schedule. And he's like, oh, they'll never play Tampa on Christmas. Like, I don't know if they'll play Tampa on Christmas. There are teams on their schedule, I think, that are maybe too good for Christmas. And he's like, he seems to have heard something about that the teams who played on Christmas last year won't this year. That's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Texans. They're all on the Bills' schedule. There goes 4 games. What do you want, the Jets? I don't know. Maybe it'll be the Jets. Sal Capaccio. I know I can count on Sal to buddy up here when it comes to schedule stuff. I don't know, Sal. Is Tampa Bay at Buffalo not pretty cool? Pretty interesting? There's no history that's important, but still.
No, I do agree with that, right? I mean, like, it's pretty cool. You got Baker Mayfield, you got Josh Allen. They're a team that was in the playoffs last year, for sure. You don't get them here a lot, but they were just here a couple of years ago. I think Tampa's a sneaky team for some bigger game here in Buffalo. You know what I mean? I don't think it has to be a Sunday at 1. I guess the way I would say it. But how about, you're saying like the Bulldog has like schedule inside information here? Is that what you're saying?
No, not exactly. He thought that he'd heard, because we talked about how the Chiefs, it was reported that the Chiefs wanted to kind of own Christmas. Mm-hmm. And he said that he thought he'd heard that was not, that the league said no to that there'd be different teams every year. Like, you know, international games are kind of like that, mostly. So I'm not sure it's like official, but that's what he seemed to think was the case.
The Chiefs have been on Christmas 2 years in a row now, though. So, I mean,
what was that? Black Friday? That was Christmas Day, wasn't it? You're right. The Raiders. Yeah. The Raider game was on Christmas. You're right.
Yeah, so I don't mean, unless they change the rule and said they're going to start doing that now, that hasn't been the case the last 2 years. They have been on Christmas the last 2 years. So I don't think that's a rule. And, like, we talked extensively about this kind of stuff with Mike North on the podcast, and I didn't get that sense at all.
Okay.
I mean, he didn't say that it wasn't possible, they wouldn't do it or anything like that, but there was no indication that they would just pivot from different teams.
And we talked a little bit as well about how the Hallmark movie thing might be relevant to the equation. So Bill's at home hoping for some snow globe snow, promote the movie, right? That's 100%.
I think there's a really solid chance the Bills are playing at home on Christmas in some capacity, probably at night in that case, what you're saying, Snow Globe, Christmas, Hallmark movie. It's just, it all fits. I don't know. I mean, who knows how it's going to actually turn out. I still think it's kind of odd that the schedule kind of has to be done here without knowing about Aaron Rodgers, right? And what his situation is, because I do think that would impact. Now, the Steelers are a national brand anyway. They're going to get primetime games anyway. But aren't they even more so in the spotlight of Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback versus, someone else and whoever's on the roster now, I guess?
Yeah, probably. So we have to wait on him again. That's become kind of par for the course. Okay, so today is the 2nd of May. The big schedule announcement, the unveiling, is May 14th, which is a week from Wednesday. What do we get between now and then? Like the morning of, the networks will each maybe announce a game of theirs. International games prior to that, what do you expect?
Yeah, schedule-wise, what we're going to get is probably something like that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was literally like at the gym in the morning, I'm on the treadmill, and bam, all of a sudden it was announced the Bills would play the Tennessee Titans week 2 as part of a Monday night doubleheader, right? I mean, those things start to come out because what happens is the week of the schedule, and this makes sense, I would look for this again, that you'll have some of the national morning shows, the CBS morning show, ABC, NBC, all the ones, whatever they're called, Today and Good Morning America, I guess, all that kind of stuff. Like they'll have some sort of programming built in and designed around the NFL and releasing what they're going to be having to promote on their network, right? So that's what happened a couple years ago. And ABC, like Good Morning America, all right, we're going to be having the Bills and Titans, ESPN, ABC, week 2. So something like that should happen again in some capacity. That's what I would expect. As far as the international games, it is interesting that years ago we'd know all of the international games, the home away and the home opponents and the home teams and the opponents by like December and January of the previous year. We don't get that anymore. So, but I wouldn't be stunned if we start to get it between now and May 14th, though, and before the actual schedule comes out.
Mm-hmm. Anytime you're ready, they're ready. I'm happy to know, like, dribs and drabs, Sal, just sprinkle in a couple of announcements here and there. That'd be good for me. This might not matter ultimately because there's 32 teams. I know all that. But when you think about the stadium in its last year, what might be most significant, more significant than the other, opening at home, closing at home? With the playoffs, being such a normal expectation for the Bills, I wonder if that would mean anything too.
I do too. According to Mike, we asked him this specifically. They wouldn't. I kind of got the feeling that playing a regular season game at home and closing out a stadium isn't kind of on their radar to make sure they do anything special from a schedule-wise, right? From a team-wise. And that's because I think a lot of it is what you just said, Mike. They've been going to the playoffs, and you kind of can't predict that because if you do it and then it's not the last game, what does it really matter? I don't even know if – in fact, I'll go this far. I don't think the league actually cares that much about the last year of the stadium like the Bills do, right? Like as far as scheduling. It's much more for them the first year of the new stadium. Like that was made clear. Like 2026, opening a new stadium is much more relevant to the league than closing another stadium. Now that being said, maybe I mischaracterized what I just said a second ago. They'll be thoughtful about it, but it's not nearly as important to them as how they want to introduce a new stadium.
All right, so getting more close to the present here, of course, the draft was last weekend, and we've talked about it many times between then and now, but as we are a week away here, all the Brandon Beane business from Monday and just everything sort of sinking in about this draft, how does it look? I mean, of course, they went hard on defense, and that was, obviously hotly debated. I feel like it makes sense. Do you feel like, and any sort of longer view takeaways from last weekend?
That I think that the longer view is they've kind of rebuilt the defense from an age standpoint as well, right? I mean, it's not just that they've kind of had to get more talent, an infusion of talent. I think they've kind of overhauled what they've done looking forward. You have several guys on defense entering the final year of their contract. You do have a couple guys on offense. Obviously, James Cook is notable. Connor McGovern is one of them. David Edwards. I think you feel really good about where their offensive line, though, is. You can extend those guys. I mean, maybe at some point McGovern gets extended. He's done a nice job, but you got guys waiting in the wings. You got Alec Anderson. You got a couple other guys, on the roster that are Cedric Van Pran Granger, right? I think that they feel really comfortable where they've put that. James Cook is definitely a kind of a different bucket on how we talk about that and we have. On defense, it's AJ Epinesa in his last year, Daquan Jones in his last year, Matt Milano in his last year. These are guys that they're going to have to think about replacing down the road and making sure that they kind of have the right people in place beyond this year. And I think that was kind of really stood out to me a little bit more in the draft, even as much as just getting new talent that can come in and play. And I think that goes hand in hand with Christian Benford's extension, Terrell Bernard's extension, Greg Rousseau's extension. This is the new core. They're the core, and they're bringing in this infusion of youth that they're all going to be here now for the next 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Also, from this week, again, back to Beane and how the week started Monday morning. Then he does the afternoon show. He does Pat McAfee ultimately, and really was Tyler Dunn at length. Really was out there this week. Maybe this, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a thing. I just wonder if you have thought about, or maybe would have noticed, that he is putting himself out there more. I mean, Beane has never at all been invisible or anything like that, but I wonder if we're maybe at a new phase with him in some way.
I've thought about it. I'm going to be really honest with you. I think that maybe because of what happened, we're thinking a little bit too much in that regard, and maybe Ivan and I have. Is that true? Because honestly, he's done a lot of this stuff, especially around this time of year. Mm-hmm. If you go back the last few years, he's been on McAfee a lot, and he's done a lot of these kinds of these interviews and gone on different platforms, whether it's local or national. I remember a couple of years ago him going on Jim Rome right around this time of year. Because I remember him. That's when he said, "Hey, I could make a move that could." Really be one big move for us, but that might really put us at a disadvantage years from now, and I want to be a contender. I remember him saying that. It was right around this time of year. It was early, this offseason, this part, maybe up into June or something like that. He has always been visible, you're right. Maybe he's doing a little bit more just by kind of numbers. He goes on Eric Wood's podcast quite a bit. He's done that already recently. So I don't know if – I haven't necessarily run it and looked at, well, what did he do last year? Because I do think that this has been something he's been doing, and maybe we just notice more because of what happened Monday and then kind of really going on and being more visible since then.
Mm-hmm. Rookie minicamp next weekend, correct? May 9th?
Yep. Well, May 9th is the media portion. They'll be in town, I think, the 9th and the 10th. The rookies will be on the field the 9th and the 10th. I think, will only get media to see them and talk to them on Friday the 9th.
Okay. How do they schedule that? Some teams are this weekend. Is it maybe teams with new coaches? Don't they get an extra week? I wonder how do they go about deciding the time between the draft and when they want to start?
So the rule is by the NFL, you can choose either the first weekend after the draft or the second weekend after the draft. If I remember correctly, the Bills have almost always been the second weekend. Maybe there's been a first weekend in there. I don't know, other than maybe just how their preference would be, and maybe they just want to get more OTAs in or whatever, however the veterans are doing. But it's always kind of been like that. And, for whatever reason, the Bills choose to do that. Now, I think this year, a lot of times they've had the rookie premiere going on in LA for some of these guys, and that's where they do some of those pictures and cards. Maybe the Bills don't want to interfere with that. I'm not really sure. But I don't think there's no rule about new head coach or no new head coach like there is with the start of workouts. It's literally, you get to choose. You want the first weekend or the second weekend in May when you want to do this. So
this next Friday, next weekend will be interesting for those defensive players. The big load up from Hairston to the two defensive tackles, a couple of DBs in there as well. It'll be interesting to sort of take a first look at everybody, I suppose. I was preparing to talk to you and to Tyler later, reading Beane with Tyler Dunn, and had the quote about, it was a spinoff with the wide receiver sort of controversy, if you will, but getting Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson on the ground in the playoffs was his kind of bottom line. And so I looked up some of the numbers on this, quarterbacks and sacks in the playoffs. Mahomes has been sacked far and away the most of any quarterback since 2018 in the playoffs. No surprise, because he's also had far and away the most games. 46 sacks in 21 games. But Sal, in 4 games against the Bills of those 21, it is 5 sacks for 20 yards in those 4 games combined. So I can certainly appreciate, say what you want about other needs, certainly appreciate this point. Of course, in the Super Bowl, the Eagles sacked him more often than the Bills have ever done in all those playoff games combined. As it happens, he named the 3 most sacked playoff quarterbacks since 2018. Probably not a coincidence, and they're all in the AFC. Mahomes, Burrow, Jackson. Allen is 4th. And so, I mean, that's a clear objective here. It's going to be a long time, though, before we know whether they can do it.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, he knew that stat and that's why. Or if it's just he's naming the best quarterbacks, right? I mean, like, that's just kind of what you do. The guys that have been in the AFC Championship games recently, and Mahomes and Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Those are the 3, right, Mike, that
yes.
he mentioned, those 3?
Yeah.
I mean, I just if I was doing that, if I was just rattling off, well, you know what? You really got to get to blank, blank, blank. I'd probably use those 3 quarterbacks, to be quite honest with you, without knowing any numbers. Because those are the 3 quarterbacks I think that are considered, with Josh Allen, the top 4 quarterbacks in the AFC. You might put Justin Herbert in there, but they haven't been in that position. So the only teams that have really been there, I mean, C.J. Stroud, I guess, right? But that's it. It's really been those 4 quarterbacks. So I get why he might actually, use that as a reference point for those. Look, we all know the Bills have failed to do that, and that has been the talking point. I think the question is why, because they've had good moments getting to the quarterback. They haven't been great at it. They haven't had these number 1 and 2 guys that have been amazing at sacks over the last few years and all that kind of stuff. They've been okay at it at times, but we all know they've kind of failed in the most critical games and moments of getting to the quarterback. The question is why. Some people will tell you it's because of coaching and scheme, and because of what they do there. Some people will tell you they don't have the right personnel. Maybe some people will tell you it's a mix of both. I don't know, but that's always been the talk of what's happened in the playoffs. That's where Sean McDermott gets so much criticism from so many people, obviously Bills fans and media, of what they have and haven't done, over the last several years and why they haven't been there. So I don't know the answer to that question, and I think that anybody who tries to answer that question is just kind of where your opinion is, where it falls. I think at the end of the day, the Bills have told you what they think, though. They need new talent there. They need more talent there. They went out and signed Joey Bosa. No more Von Miller, I know. They went out and signed Joey Bosa. They went out and signed Michael Hoyt. They went out and drafted Landon Jackson. They drafted 2 defensive tackles. They signed another defensive tackle in free agency. I think the Bills, by their own actions, have told you what they think about the reason.
Yeah, you want to get to a point where a team like the Chiefs is almost forced into sacrificing, a blocking back or an extra tight end, keep them in the out from running routes, keep them in the pocket or whatever to try to offset what you're doing there. But a long way to go, and then we'll get to the playoffs, and these teams will all have played each other. Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Ravens, all on the Bills' home schedule. So it'll be a rematch if they get to the playoffs against any of those guys. Hey, sure, those are the 3 quarterbacks you named. There's certainly the 3 quarterbacks the Bills GM could name. I mean, they've played 7 playoff games against those 3 teams combined. But interesting to see how relatively little success the Bills have had with Mahomes in particular versus his career in the playoffs overall. I mean, it's...
Yeah, that's an issue, right? That's a problem. That's what you look at and go, wait a minute. Why were these other teams able to do it? Why were the Texans able to do it? Why were the Bengals able to do it? How come the Bills haven't? Why were the Eagles able to do it? How come the Buccaneers? I mean, you look at the ones, the teams, I mean, they haven't lost all these games, but, they were in tussles and ones they weren't. And that's been part of the reason that they haven't been able to protect him. And what was the Chiefs failing last year mostly? Offensive line. They couldn't protect their quarterback. And when it came time, the Bills couldn't get to him, like a lot of teams did. And that's kind of what's happened here. And I think that's why we are where we are and why the GM says what he says.
Allen sacked 28 times in 13 postseason games. Special hat tip to Sam Darnold for being sacked 9 times in 1 last year against the Rams. If you don't mind, it's a little bit out of left field, but another schedule thought I had for you was I'm preparing for literally 11 rookie fantasy drafts that start tomorrow. And thinking a lot about the rookies. And Travis Hunter is maybe the biggest star of them all. What do you think Jacksonville – how do you think Jacksonville might rate in terms of prime time?
Ooh, in terms of prime time, I'd have to look back to see what they got last year. They were in Buffalo last year for one.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Might have been it.
Yeah, I still don't think they're going to get a ton. Because they're already going to get 2 international games, right?
Okay.
And you're probably looking at 1 more primetime game, maybe 2, because as much as they have some talent and Travis Hunter certainly moves the needle, I think the league is already kind of showcasing them in a different way a little bit, and that's that can be enough. So I don't think they're quite at the level where, okay, on top of all these international games are playing, we got to kind of put them in all these windows to make sure the country sees them.
Hunter is the reason I ask, just because he's so different. I looked at it was the first round, and you might have been with us when we talked about this last Friday, but all the skill position guys who went in round one, it might have been 10 or 12, including quarterbacks. The only ones who are on the Bills' schedule are the two NFC South guys, Tet McMillan for Carolina and Ibuka for Tampa. All the other running back, receiver, tight end, quarterback rookies picked in round one, the Bills don't see.
Last year, they saw Marvin Harrison Jr. week one.
Yep.
That was interesting, right? The Bills have tough quarterbacks in their schedule. But you're right. I mean, when it comes to really kind of hot rookie talent, offensively, not as much to say as far as the schedule is concerned.
I guess they might get Tyler Shugg, Sal.
Yeah, they could, I guess. You're right about that. And I'm wondering, honestly, who's the quarterback when the Bills play the Browns? We don't know what week that is yet, but I don't know who the quarterback is week one. Yeah. I asked somebody, I had John Scott on from Channel 2. He has grown up, watching the Cleveland Browns. He's a Cleveland Browns fan growing up, so he still follows them. And I said, who's their starting quarterback week one? He said he believes it's Joe Flacco. Well, then I had Jonathan Peterlin, on, who is your counterpart at the Fan in Cleveland. He's on the air right now. He's their afternoon show host. I asked him the same question. Who is their starting quarterback week one? And he said either Shedeur Sanders or Kenny Pickett. So I think this is fascinating. Yeah,
I did want to ask you about them. We don't have much time left, but how would you play it? Or, if you had the autonomy, maybe ownership is in your hair there.
Yeah.
But how would you play it? Or maybe if you like this question more, what chance do you have of whatever you would consider success with the Browns and the quarterback juggling? I think, by the way, as you think of that, the Browns and the Steelers both, you could end up with, if you play them right away, it's one answer to that question. And if you play them in December, it's someone else, especially Cleveland.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think, Mike, the first question I have to ask myself, my staff, my organization is, what is our goal this year? Are we trying to win this year? Are we trying to make the playoffs? Are we trying to make sure we're in a good spot that we can kind of build something here? Because that has to be asked. I'm not talking about tanking. I'm talking about just kind of where we are. Are we trying to actively win? If that is the case, you have to start Joe Flacco. He is the quarterback on that roster that actually gives them the best chance to win right away, I believe. He's a veteran. Now, you could say he's not that good. I get it. But compared to the other guys on the team, I still think he gives them the best chance to win right away. But I think that if you're the Cleveland Browns, you look at that division, you look at where you are. I actually works out in their favor in this regard, which is there's not as much pressure now to play him early. There's not as much pressure on for him to play early, and I think that you can let him develop a little bit. So you don't have to put him in right away. So, hey, whoever that is, if that winds up being Flacco or Kenny Pickett, if you decide that you don't have to win this year, then I don't know why you have Joe Flacco on the team. Let Kenny Pickett play if that's the case. I don't know about Dylan Gabriel. It's got to be Shedeur Sanders over Dylan Gabriel at the end of the day, even though they draft him higher, I would think. So I think if your answer is we need to try and win, you got to start Joe Flacco. If the answer is nah, I think we're okay. Look what we're doing here. Let's build it. Then I think it's got to be either Pickett or Sanders. Let them battle it out, and you're okay if Shedeur Sanders doesn't start right away.
And I think most coaches would play it down the middle, which is start a veteran, is what usually happens, and then move to a rookie once you're kind of drawing dead. Would be a great camp to cover, wouldn't it? Cleveland this year with Sanders there, and just be a lot of drama. All right, Sal. Thanks for today. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline, brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor, your place to buy a case. What is your outlet? Flacco is 40. I've had some reason for thinking that I'm going to go to his Pro Football Reference page and see he's actually 33 or something like that. Way younger than you think, but no, that wouldn't make sense. He was in the league. He started 16 games as a rookie in 2008. So if he's 33, he would have been, 16 doing that? 17? That definitely did not happen. The NFL wouldn't even allow that. He started 16 games in a season has the show ever sounded older, 16-game schedule. Each of his first 7 games in the league, never had a losing record, QB wins. He missed time in 15, came right back to full start, 16 and 17, then Lamar Jackson showed up. And since then, he's been on Broncos, Jets, Browns, Colts, now back to the Browns. How would you play that in Cleveland? Any rookie questions? I don't know if Sal is in any dynasty leagues where you'd have your rookie drafts getting started. I don't think he is. Something else I thought I might ask him, didn't get to it. 803-0550 for your calls. 5 o'clock, Tyler Dunn. 5:30, Dave Buchanan. Bulldog is off today. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
The Buffalo Bandits are in action tonight. They're home at KeyBank Center for Game 1 of the NLL semifinals. They take on the Vancouver Warriors. Game time at 7:30 for pregame right here on WGR. That'll get underway at 7. The first 10,000 fans are going to receive a playoff rally towel. Your tickets can be had at bandits.com. Game 2 is this weekend, Sunday in Vancouver. And stay tuned for more on the Bandits coming up at 5:30. Dave Buchanan will join the show. Just 2 playoff games tonight between the NHL and the NBA. For the NHL, it's Game 6 between Winnipeg and St. Louis. It'll start at 8 o'clock. Game is in St. Louis. Winnipeg, though, can advance tonight with a win. While in the NBA, another Game 6, Warriors-Rockets at 9. The Warriors host and can advance with a win. For this weekend, it's the 151st Kentucky Derby. Tune in tomorrow for a special edition of Sports Talk Saturday. Brian Koziel will be live from Batavia Downs from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. to get you ready for the Derby coverage. Going to be throughout the afternoon. The main event, though, expected to go off at 6:57 p.m. And then in baseball, Bisons are in Iowa against the Cubs just after 8 o'clock, and that'll be on our sister station, The Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I think Landon Jackson could be a better player in the NFL than he was in college. They didn't necessarily play to his strength as well as they could at Arkansas. They almost kind of looked at his size and went, well, you're more of a power rusher. You're going to play inside. But actually, if you watch a lot of his wins, his best work came threatening the edge. And he showed with the pre-combine process, the athleticism is there as well. Like, he's not just a big, slow, lumbering type of power player. He's a guy that has got the speed and dynamism and explosiveness to threaten the edge.
Sam Monson, longtime PFF analyst. Now he and Steve Palazzolo, their podcast, Check the Mic. Really good. Monson talking about Landon Jackson, the Bills' third-round pick. I did not spend my week banging on the Bills trading up in round 2 like they did so much because I did think a week ago, right now, as we were approaching day 2, that they would want to get into round 3. And I don't have the data for that. It just feels like that third round, as you know, you're closing out the second night of the draft, and then Saturday maybe is more like a free-for-all. I mean, it's not that they don't take it seriously, but I feel like the third round is a really strategic. I wouldn't want to be out of it, and the Bills were until they made that trade. I mean, they didn't get crushed on the value charts at all by that trade. They gave up a 4th, I think, and got a 7th to move up and then get that third. They traded both of their second-round picks, moving up in round 2 and out of round 2 with the other one. And I think Jackson a little bit probably helped me because a lot of people really like him. And it read like he was good value at pick, what was it, 72 maybe? I was sitting with a friend watching the draft last Friday night, and he called it. He said, this is the guy, Landon Jackson, and it was. In the second round, I called somebody else, and it did not prove correct. Donovan Ezeraku, an edge rusher from Boston College, who would eventually get drafted by Dallas. But I didn't know a lot about Sanders, the guy that Bills picked after moving up in the second round. So, you know me, like, when I need it, I've got it. When I need a point, next year's draft or at some point sooner about trading up in the second round for, interior defensive line doesn't seem optimal. But I do like that they got into the third round and people like the player. 803-0550 to join me. Bulldog is off this week, talking about the week that it's been with post-draft and the firestorm that Brandon Beane created here on Monday. Last year, so this is a wide receiver point, just to, brace yourselves. Last year, what did we have throughout the offseason? Diggs was gone. Right now, like beginning of May last year, the draft is over. Diggs has been traded. Davis has left in free agency. Shakir we liked. Samuel was signed. We'll see what that is. Mac Hollins was signed. I don't know. What's that? Special teams? And then Coleman was drafted. Plus you had Knox and Kincaid, of course. Then the Bills start. So, you sit there like, what do you think they have? Right? We've got a couple guys from the practice squad. KJ Hamler, sort of bit parts, if you will. What did it look like? And I don't think I loved it. One thing that Beane has said this week about the wide receiver stuff is like last year he thought it was totally fair to question it. They didn't know how it would work, and it ended up working very well. So what happened? MVS, who got a little bit of money, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he made it to the roster, played a little bit, didn't last. You had Chase Claypool. I got excited about him. I thought, and I think that people would say the same, tons of talent, but is it in there? Does he have the dog in him, right? Is it in there for Claypool? He gets hurt right away in camp and just goes away. And there might have been one or two other guys, I think there were, that just sort of seemed like long shot candidates, but reflected the Bills making an effort to just hoping to find gold at the position. And ultimately, none of those guys were gold. Elijah Moore, I think this maybe even could be unanimous. Like, he comes in above those names from a year ago, which makes the week we've just had a little bit more interesting still. Like, he is not a long shot to make it, probably. Maybe he's even a favorite. $5 million or up to $5 million. Maybe he's even a favorite to make the roster, but he's not so clear cut. I mean, he lasted through free agency all the way past the draft. They didn't draft one. They signed Elijah Moore, maybe because of that. They had more of a need for one at that point. He is going to be a challenge for me to try to slot because of all the things put together, how adamant the GM has been about the receiver position. Like, it's not the need. I don't think it's the need you do, to put it nicely. But he signs Moore, and he's got a pretty good. It's better than last year, and like you sort of know what you have. You've lost Hollins, and Cooper came and went in between there, but you have a better idea of what Khalil Shakir means to your team. More yards after the catch. Still has not been a red zone factor really at all, but a good player. Not only what you got from Coleman, but what you think you need to work on with him. And there's Kincaid is a little bit of a part of that too, the same way. You have more of a base of knowledge on the unit than you did last year, when last year you're sort of at this point, early May, trying to figure out how it fits together. And I think this year you better know that. I mean to say, you know that better than you did a year ago. What will Elijah Moore be? I mean, is this a player where you need to look at him in camp and see what the chemistry looks like, where he's at physically? It's his fifth year in the league now, although he's still very young, and roles and other things. I think he's got to play outside to matter. Samuel, who I left out again, which I just always seem to forget about him, but I said to Bulldog the other day before Elijah Moore happened that Samuel feels a little bit too important for my comfort level right now for what they have or what they don't have anymore. And maybe Moore is kind of like it's Moore or Samuel, perhaps. And both, are getting decent money. And Palmer, of course, is in this mix too at even more money. And I don't think I mentioned him this time. So there still is some uncertainty, I guess I'd have to say. But last year, going out and just sort of hoping for a hit in the players they brought in, that seemed a little bit more, hopeful, like fingers are crossed, maybe there's somebody here, than this. Now, you've got a financial commitment to Samuel, somewhat of a commitment, not huge, to Moore, and yes, to Palmer. And then it's about how to juggle these guys, because you're not going to want to freeze Coleman out. You do that, then, we're talking about that draft pick all the time. And, of course, Kincaid and Shakir will almost, he'll definitely be on the field a lot. So different, but not all the way different from last year. One thing I've been talking about this week and today a little bit too is the NFL schedule, which comes out on May 14th, so a week from Wednesday. I wonder what kind of year it will be when we talk in terms of the stadium closing and just kind of what people are feeling, how people are feeling about that. You have, in these kind of things, always both. You have the nostalgia about the stadium that's closing, and then also the excitement about the new place. Next year will be crazy fun for that. But if you ever have an idea about like how the schedule should look with the stadium in mind, I'm thinking about that a lot. And I don't feel like I really know anything about how that will turn out. You could have week 1 here as a final opening day. You could have the finale here as the final regular season home game. You could have both. You have the teams where the Bills have played Jets, Dolphins, Patriots twice a year since forever. Dolphins technically a little later because they came in the league later, but still. Then you've got the Giants, not the New York Giants, but the big shots. What a year to close it out. Kansas City here, Baltimore here, Cincinnati here, Philadelphia here, Super Bowl champs. That's great. Then the other 2 games are the Saints and the Bucks, and, I guess do what you want. But I think about the schedule a lot, always, because it's just fun for me. And then also with this being that year for the Bills, the little bit extra that comes with it. Take a break here. We'll talk to Tyler Dunn at 5. This is Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today and Monday. This is WGR. It's that weekend. Just a few minutes ago, I looked up, and it was a total downpour at Churchill Downs. I have never been. I have a few, we all do maybe, a few friends who have gone or even go. You know, Eric Wood, I think of, has been there maybe a lot in Louisville, right? That would make sense. Think of like all the Tom Brady types, the celebrities, the sundresses, the suits, the glasses, the mint juleps, the whole vibe there. I would like to go once. It's just the kind of thing you say because here I am at this point in my life having never really made any effort to do it. It's, you know, you got to make choices. Get to an age where I've been there already, so maybe I should, even though I loved it, I shouldn't do that. I should do this instead. It's going to take some planning. I doubt some weekend in early May some year somebody's just going to take me to the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to probably have to figure that out. But when I look at it, and I don't really follow horse racing, I get into it like a lot of people do this weekend, or for the Triple Crown. When I look at it, I do get jealous. It is like the Masters in that way, where I think a self-respecting sports fan may really need to get there. But again, I've made no effort. Even Augusta, it's a tougher ticket, right? Someday, maybe, probably not. I don't know, but I like the idea of it. For a while, I was attacking major league stadiums. This is 25 years ago, single road trips to Baltimore and Cleveland and Detroit, Wrigley, just checking off ballparks. Had a California trip, 2010, Anaheim, Dodger Stadium, San Diego. Have all the California stadiums, missing like 6 or 8, but again, not actively pursuing that. I might need to make some plans. The Masters and now the Derby have me feeling like I really need to go somewhere. Plus, Bulldog is at Red Rocks after being in Puerto Rico and Spain. Like, where have I've been nowhere since then. I went to Hamilton for my daughter's hockey a couple of times. I've been there. You know, of course, right across the Pennsylvania border to bet on something, maybe. That's that fireworks place. I've been there. I'm lacking right now. Have it on. I'm looking at Ed Olczyk. He and another NBC analyst are keeping track of their bets. It's Ed Zoe's bank and Matt's bank. We all need to pay a debt of gratitude to Hank Goldberg for that. Hank's bank. I loved that. There was something about the late Hank Goldberg who was like crotchety but funny in a way, and he looked kind of funny, and he would like tell you that maybe it was $1,000. I think that's what these guys are doing. Whether it's real money or play. I'm sure they're betting on the races. Maybe the same way as they're saying, you would think. But because I think Olczyk just had a big hit. Hank's bank, and it's, you know, kind of funnier when they lose, where I'm betting $50, 20, whatever, break it down. And they keep track of his bankroll through the day. I always liked that. Had some fun with friends a couple times watching the Breeders' Cup, which is in November, I believe, and just like playing along. Mike's bank, just it was not $1,000, but I don't know, it's different. The Kentucky Derby is the longest continuously held sporting event in America, which means it's not the Pro Bowl skills competition. It's been run for longer than that. It's not the Gus Macker. It's the Kentucky Derby. It's not the NLL playoffs tonight. The Bandits and Vancouver. That'll be a 7:30 game at the arena. Dave Buchanan will join me at 5:30 to preview it. Haven't taken calls today. Had a couple guests already. Have a couple more coming up. But I mentioned a couple of times how it is really like the week for dynasty fantasy football rookie drafts. They're not all the week after the real draft, but a lot of them are. Like I said earlier, I've got 11 that start tomorrow. They're slow. It's not like it's all happening at once. But if anybody ever hears me mention this and is curious, send me an email or something on Twitter, because it's my favorite subject almost. I'm, a self-appointed advocate for fantasy football, dynasty football. If you've never played dynasty, what it does, if you have time for it in your life, what it does is it makes the draft more interesting, landing spots and all the different rookies and what kind of fits they are on their new teams, how much draft capital was invested. Sam Panayotovich earlier mentioned Omarion Hampton for the Chargers, which you have to like there. Not everybody liked the player, but it's a first-round pick on a running back, and if they don't run the heck out of him, why did they do it? There were all kinds of running backs to pick from in the draft, so that's a really good sign. It's part of the thinking that Sam mentioned that goes into wanting to back him for Offensive Rookie of the Year. If you're playing Dynasty, the draft becomes way more interesting because it all sort of means something. And then the offseason, whereas in a, so to speak, traditional fantasy league, you don't do anything until like August when you get together for the draft, and then off you go. But to be able to make trades and to have conversations with people year round is just more fun. So if you ever wonder about it, I can be a resource for you, just like how the rules work in different leagues that I'm in and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to talk about it, as you could probably tell. Tyler Dunn, After Sports, here on WGR.
We're at home at KeyBank Center for Game 1 of the NLL semifinals against the Vancouver Warriors. Game time at 5:30. Pregame right here on WGR. We'll get going half hour before that at 7. And the first 10,000 fans who show up will receive a playoff rally towel. You can get your tickets at bandits.com. Game 2 will be this weekend, Sunday in Vancouver. We'll get more on the Bandits when Dave Buchanan joins the show in just about a half hour at 5:30. Just 2 playoff games tonight between the NHL and the NBA. For the NHL, it's Game 6 between Winnipeg and St. Louis at 8. The game is in St. Louis. Winnipeg, though, can advance tonight with a win. While in the NBA, Game 6 of Warriors-Rockets at 9, the Warriors can advance with a win and are at home. But the big news in the NBA today was Greg Popovich stepping down as the San Antonio Spurs coach. Popovich has been their coach for 29 years and in that time won 5 NBA championships. Popovich is staying with the organization. He'll be serving as the team president, while the next head coach for the Spurs will be coming from within the organization. His longtime assistant, Mitch Johnson, will assume the role. The 151st Kentucky Derby tomorrow. Tune in for a special edition of Sports Talk Saturday. Brian Koziel will be live from Batavia Downs from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Coverage will be throughout the afternoon with the main event expected to go off at 6:57 p.m. And then in baseball, Bisons are in Iowa against the Cubs just after 8, and that game can be heard on our sister station, the Bet 1520. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
You know, I gotta wonder what kind of working relationship he'd have with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp.
I've often wondered that. Like, will he, they, I don't know what his pronouns are, or their pronoun. Anyway, Satan.
And the Bulldog.
What's the upside of doing well? Well, maybe they're too busy making everyone else's life hell. Oh, boy. And wow. you might just be able to do your own thing if you're partnered with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They're too busy, making Scott Norwood miss field goals. Oh, come on.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Out of line. Bulldog is off through Monday. Happy Friday to you. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening. The Bandits are home to Vancouver in their second playoff round tonight. It is a best-of-3 series. Tonight home, Sunday in Vancouver. Long way to go for one. And then, if necessary, the team split back here for the decider next weekend. Going for a third straight title. You can hear it on WGR. Dave Buchanan will join me to give us a preview in about 25 minutes. Right now, the man behind GoLongTD.com, Tyler Dunn. Number one answer this week has been our talking about Brandon Beane. Number 2, close behind it, is Brandon Beane talking, period. He did what, Tyler? An hour with you and maybe longer?
Hey, what's up, Mike? Great to be here, man.
Yes.
Yeah, it was about an hour right there at One Bills Drive, and we caught up for about the same amount of time last year, right around now too. So, hey, don't take that for granted. It's rare to get a general manager, somebody running the show, the architect of a roster, to sit down and not just talk for an hour, but give you substance. I mentioned to Brandon at one point, I was around Ted Thompson for 5 years, and he said a whole lot of nothing, which, God rest his soul, one of the best GMs of his time. But yeah, there are other approaches to this job for sure.
Well, I wonder what sense you got or get from Beane. Monday morning on WGR was kind of a disaster. He was just so hot, almost unprovoked. And, then he's doing other media and it sounds less hot. Is he trying to get a particular point across here, Tyler? I don't know if I'm not trying to load these questions either, because I'm not sure any of these answers is yes, but I don't know if he seemed defensive to you or just sort of like how he normally is.
That's a good point. And the way I kind of started our conversation is, just kind of joking around. I mean, this was 24 hours after he goes viral in nuclear with Jeremy, and I said, yeah, I figured we just start off talking wide receivers, Brandon. Let's just get right into it. I wrote a story, basically saying the same exact thing that Jeremy's been saying on the radio, that they should draft receivers, flood Josh Allen with weapons, and it was I guess a few less curse words with myself than Jeremy, but just as passionate. He has a point to make, and when you hear whether it's Brandon Beane, any GM, any coach, any player for that matter, kind of go off like that to that extreme, it does make you think. I mean, there's probably a lot of conversations internally, and he's hearing things externally. There's probably a lot bubbling there, is what I would say. And he knows what fans are thinking, what fans are saying. And I was absolutely open to the idea of, okay, let's see where you're coming from, and came away from our conversation thinking, yeah, that makes a hell of a lot of sense that you're building the team this way and feel the way you do.
One thing he's got in his defense here is, and this came out Monday morning and in your piece, last year's results. I mean, 30 points a game is 30 points a game. And 29 in the playoffs, by the way, against 3 good to great teams. And he cited the last Carolina team he was with that went to the Super Bowl against Denver, and how they led the league in points, which I did not think about or remember, with Ted Ginn, Jericho Cotchery, Philly Brown, and a rookie Devin Funchess, if I have that right. Not exactly, tip of the tongue sort of names. And so, and they had the same up the middle defensive prowess that he wants here. So he's got more than just last year and these recent Bill seasons as examples.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure where he'd go with that Carolina Panthers blueprint, because there's part of me thinking, like, would he or Sean McDermott really want to bring up those Panther teams? I mean, yeah, they went to the Super Bowl one year, went to the Super Bowl another year. Those names are kind of at the top of my mind. It's not something you'd necessarily want to gloat about, brag about, but when you really look back at 2003, that's Jake Delhomme, Mushin Muhammad. Steve Smith was really young at that time. I mean, they were winning with defense, with Julius Peppers, Chris Jenkins. He goes right down the line, right through the depth chart, really, with that front seven. Same thing in 2015, that defense, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. Remember the Super Bowl he's playing with one arm, basically. It's all stapled up. I mean, it's grisly to look at that thing. Just tough, nasty, salty, to use his words, Brandon Beane's words. That's what he really wants to build. And, I think you've got that luxury when you've got a Cam Newton in an MVP season and now a Josh Allen giving you those kind of seasons year in, year out to build a team however you want. And I guess we'll see how it plays out, right? It's hard to say what's right and what's wrong right now. They haven't gotten to a Super Bowl, let alone win one. But I think that my tendency, quick reaction is, get weapons. Load up on weapons. I still remember Ron Wolf, Hall of Fame GM, saying, I wish I got Brett Favre more weapons. Another Hall of Fame GM, Bill Polian. What did he do every year for Peyton Manning? Weapons, weapons, weapons. And then next thing you know, they evolve. Dallas Clark becomes such a weapon in the slot. Things change. It reaches another gear. They beat the Patriots. They win the Super Bowl. Yeah, he could go that route, right? Like, that is an option to just draft these guys nonstop. But this is what Brandon Beane knows. This is what he's going to stick to. He's seen it work. He's seen those two teams come within inches of winning a Super Bowl both times, and that's how he's going to build the Buffalo Bills. And I think, whether it's Jeremy, myself, anybody at a press conference, when we're talking about the offense, I part of me gets it when he gets ticked off, because, look, it really was 8 games in a row, 30 points, first team ever, 30 rushing touchdowns, 30 passing touchdowns. And when it comes to the defense, it's an absolute calamity. I mean, it's absolute disaster. 55% of the time teams are scoring touchdowns on non-kneel down drives the last 4 playoff losses. So that's what needs to be fixed. The fact that Patrick Mahomes is kind of waltzing through the farmer's market against Buffalo, and then next thing you know, you see him getting smacked around by Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, and the Eagles. It's 2 totally different ecosystems. It looks like 2 different sports, those 2 games. So, yeah, I think Brandon Beane knows, like, McDermott, the team, they deserve, criticism from us. But he thinks, look, it probably should be at our defense. We're not getting after these quarterbacks, and, hell, they went after them this spring.
I do appreciate how he told you, last year I get it. This year I don't so much get it. But he's kind of founding that on Josh Palmer. And I think that's pretty hopeful. Now it's Elijah Moore, too, I suppose. See, it's always two different things, Tyler. The commitment, but then, the results. Are the players good? You could draft weapons in the first round. Kincaid and Coleman count for something, but they haven't really been hits yet. So effort is one thing. Results is another. Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, 21 games, 46 times sacked, including 6 by Philadelphia in the recent Super Bowl. 4 of those games against Buffalo, 5 sacks for 20 yards. So you can appreciate, if you don't agree with them, then you don't, but Beane identifying not just Mahomes necessarily, but that lack of production as a weakness is fair.
I think so, too. I mean, especially when you see firsthand, it is possible. I mean, Tampa Bay did the same exact thing. I think, what was the stat, Mike? I think it was Next Gen or something, added up the amount of yards that Patrick Mahomes was running around before he either threw the ball or was sacked. I think it was 497 against Tampa Bay. I mean, he looked like he was running for his damn life. And when has he ever looked like that in these playoff games against Buffalo? It just hasn't been the case. So I think you give Brandon Beane credit for effort, right? And to your point, now you have to see results, because the effort is trading up for a TJ Sanders, a guy you talk around the league. He would have been gone if Buffalo stood pat. I do think that if you want this player, you better go get him, because he wouldn't have been sitting there. There were teams that were absolutely going to draft TJ Sanders. And in theory, as Brandon Beane laid out, you can't double Ed Oliver every single play. Maybe he gets freed up now if Sanders has proved himself by then. Joey Bosa, they say they have a plan for him to stay healthy. Maybe you get a Larry Ogunjobi back by at that point. He's giving you something. So there's a path here for it to be different. But this is kind of the beauty of pro football. Brandon Beane knows this. Ultimately, he will be judged by the Keon Colemans, the Dalton Kincaids, the Maxwell Harrisons, these draft picks. And he is making the final call. And he confirmed that in our conversation. He's making these picks. He's the one in charge. We'll be able to judge this GM in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, as these guys play more and more and more. And then we'll see if this is the right approach to kind of follow that Panthers blueprint.
Your saying that makes me just want to ask you, do you have a sense of how it's going, the team of Beane and McDermott? Beane stressing to you, if that's not too strong, that it's up to me? Do you feel like there's, if you can even say, if you don't know, then you can skip the question, because I really don't know. I just wonder sometimes, because, it's been a long time. I wonder if, they're still as kind of joined at the hip, so to speak, as ever.
I think so, right? Everything publicly is hunky-dory, and why wouldn't it be? They've won 5 division titles in a row. They do try to kind of remind everybody of that big picture and go out of their way to do so. I think what Sean McDermott was doing in an interview at an MLS game and was asked about, he brought up then, look, it's been really good. Let's keep perspective here. But hell, one of my best friends, in college, a roommate, we loved each other all the time, hung out all the time, got along, this and that. Eventually you get sick of somebody and you're at each other's throats. So I think it's human nature. You're around somebody 8 years. I'm sure there are disagreements. That's just a gut feeling more than anything behind the scene on how to build this thing, how to get over the hump. And, will that boil over? I don't know. I'm not sure. I did ask at one point, what did Sean think about these picks? And he said, this was the plan early in the spring. We knew we had to beef up on the D-line. And I don't know why the head coach would be upset with a draft like this. I mean, he has options galore. And, if you fast forward to January, to me, that's the story. It's the defense is really out of excuses. They've got new coaches, new players, options on the D-line, options at cornerback. It's not going to turn into a game of where's Kyrie or Elam for Patrick Mahomes. You've got different types of corners out there. More than anybody, Sean McDermott should be absolutely elated with this NFL draft for the Bills.
And by the way, of course, it's not just sacks. I mean, often the best quarterbacks can avoid sacks for the most part, but Mahomes ran for 2 touchdowns in that game this year. In the 13 seconds game, he went 7 for 69 and a touchdown. And the one this last year, remember him just kind of walking in around the right side for a touchdown in that game? Like just sort of the defensive line, the holding up overall is where we are. People growing apart. Bulldog not here today. The cover story is he's on a short vacation. That's what we're going with.
That play you brought up too, Mike, Greg Rousseau the next day, in so many words, they weren't prepared for it. They had no clue that Mahomes would keep the ball on that play. You watch it, I think, but they're pulling left and he runs right. So, yeah, I mean, that's an indictment of coaching. Just like on the other side of the ball with Cyrus Torrance breaking down the fateful 4th and 5. So it's always, is it the players? Is it the coaches? Who's to blame? We're all trying to figure that out. It's probably all the above, and it's a game of inches, and they somehow got to win those inches against these Chiefs.
I mean, coaching is such a huge part of it. I think of that as the difference this year. And they did not have a good season on offense, Kansas City, a relative term, but it just worked for them that day. And the one or two plays late, you're mentioning 2 from this last game, the year before here, it's the same kind of thing. That's part of it. You wonder, Tyler, how long this gets. I mean, it's been an incredible 7 years, 8 for McDermott so far. Allen will be here for a lot longer. But it's one of these classic teams that win and win and win, but hit their heads on the ceiling. You mentioned Polian's Colts, and there are other examples, Andy Reid in Philadelphia, where that happens. And, sometimes a team moves on before it gets there.
Only 3 head coaches in NFL history, the Super Bowl era, have lasted this long with one team and won a Super Bowl. I believe it's Hank Stram, Tom Landry, and Bill Cowher. So, yeah, it's time, right? It's time to kick that door down. And I don't know if they're close to having those hard conversations. And, I think it's worth noting Sean McDermott evolved for good last year, and we've gotten into it in many ways. The aggressiveness and just really getting players to think about what can go right instead of dreading what can go wrong. It's not something you can just call a fake punt to DeMar Hamlin, wave a magic wand, and, you got it. Like, they found something late that 2023 season, but it took a full year to kind of marinate that, I think, in the subconscious, in the psychology of this team. But 1 through 53 and being around that team, they really genuinely grew to believe. So you give Sean McDermott credit for that. I think last year was a hell of a job coaching for him. But every coach ultimately is judged by January performance. And look, the roster was good enough to beat the Chiefs 4 years in a row in the regular season. So Beane did something right in that department, personnel-wise. And now the coach has all the pieces on defense. It's crazy. I mean, you've been covering this team, talking about this team forever, Mike. It still is wild to me. I think everybody, fans, players, media, coaches, just wants to hit that simulate to January button because nothing really matters until then. And then that's when we kind of draw our conclusions. You guys had great segments all week, too, on, appreciating this moment in time. It's good to feel alive, I think, for fans, right? To feel joy and pain rather than just be numb and comatose for 17 years.
Yeah, right. Being grateful or being mad that they haven't made it. Stram, Landry, Cowher. So length of term before a Super Bowl win. So Stram would have had an AFL win. I mean, it's Super Bowl 4. So that almost really disqualifies him, I would say, from that maybe. Landry's good because Dallas's thing, even before the Super Bowl era, was they just always finish second. And then they win Super Bowl 6 to break that. Cowher's absolutely. I mean, Cowher, the thing about him, that was 13 years before he won it. And, the Steelers have had 3 coaches in my lifetime. It's just sort of, Pittsburgh's almost different, but he's a part of why. I mean, Pittsburgh's almost different for not making a coaching change. They just never do. Nick Kostos on with us last Wednesday, Tyler, said, and I have not confirmed this, but I remember him saying it. I'm thinking that he knows it. No coach and quarterback combo that have been together this long have ever won it. And that would be Allen and McDermott. That would be Jackson and Harbaugh, too, where it's the same coach and the same quarterback for this many years. Once you get here, it doesn't happen, or it hasn't happened is how I should put that, because it certainly could happen for either team. They've both been great.
That's unbelievable. I never would have guessed that. It's been a while. And
I suppose time flies while you're having fun, and it's mostly been fun for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's 29. He's kind of entering that next phase of his career. He's got the MVP hardware, and it is fascinating, Mike. I mean, this is the direction they're taking it. They want to just create this runaway freight train of an offense that can run the ball, throw when necessary, and beat you physically on the line of scrimmage, beat you physically on the line of scrimmage defensively, and that's I don't really have any questions on offense. I feel like even though they had this crazy good health on the offensive line, even though they had the plus 28 turnover differential, which is nuts, nobody even close to that last season, I think that, maybe the Palmer tweak is enough to kind of keep this thing moving. The question's defense. Like, is anything going to change? And until you see it in the playoffs, we just kind of have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Tyler, out of left field here, if you don't mind, before you go, I'd just be curious for how you think it's going to go for Travis Hunter in Jacksonville. I was talking to Sal earlier about them as are they an interesting primetime team? And Sal kind of thought maybe still not really. But Hunter is unique in modern NFL history, of course. Any guesses as to what they do with him? How will he be the best receiver in the NFL and the best corner? Is that even possible?
Man, I absolutely love what Jacksonville did. Everything Travis Hunter. What do all the picks in the world do for you if you can't? You think if anybody would learn this, it's the Cleveland Browns. How many times have they done this over? Back to the Julio Jones trade. They're constantly, following the analytics, compiling picks. How many darts can we throw at the board? And they just end up throwing their darts. They're basically blindfolded and turn around the opposite direction. Jacksonville knew they wanted Hunter, so they went and got him. And I think their plan for him is it's going to be wide receiver. And it will be, maybe situational cornerback stuff to where you're not overdoing it. Red zone, 2 minutes, third down, throw them out there in the slot, have them lock somebody down. I think that they do have a plan, and they Gladstone and Liam Cohen, they got into this where they've talked to sports scientists, they talked to trainers, equipment managers, coaches, everybody to kind of figure this thing out because the Pac-12 is not the NFL. I get it. He played all those snaps in college. He's not going to be able to do that in the NFL, but he is a special talent. And scouts around the NFL, they really do see just a 0 to 60 tap, 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 and he's gone kind of receiver. So opposite Brian Thomas Jr. with Trevor Lawrence and a different coaching, I think this thing can work. And it was fascinating. I talked to his high school coach a couple weeks ago, and his life is nuts. I mean, when he was the number one recruit in all of high school football, there was a play his senior year where his coach is convinced that the other team basically had a bounty out for him. And I watched the play. It looks like it. 5 guys just crunch him, sandwich him, twist him around in a pile. He breaks his leg. He's army crawling toward the sideline. It's just brutal to watch. And he thinks he's done. He thinks football's done. And that his leg is just a compound fracture and all this. It's a hairline fracture. He returns in 5-6 weeks. Picks up where he left off, and look at him now.
Wow.
I think that he's going to pan out big time.
Wow, what a story. What's next at golongtd.com?
Yeah, so I spent some time down in Florida for the owners' meetings, but with some players as well for some features. There's a player for the Dolphins, spent the whole day together, just unreal upbringing, basically homeless as a child for a good 3-4 years, and remembers it all, remembers the detail, what life was like. It's crazy that he's alive, let alone in the NFL, and it's kind of out to save lives today in different ways as a player. So I think that's going to be really interesting, for everybody out there. And there's a couple deep dives we're working on a couple teams that will take a couple more months to work on. But getting some folks talking, I think it'll be interesting. We're always trying to lift up that curtain on this game.
Very good. Thanks for today, Tyler.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Tyler Dunn with us, golongtd.com. Next, Dave Buchanan on tonight's Bandits second-round playoff opener, home against Vancouver. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Bandits are in action tonight. They are at home at KeyBank Center for Game 1 of the NLL semifinals. They take on the Vancouver Warriors. Game time, 7:30 pregame right here on WGR. Will begin a half hour before that at 7. The first 10,000 fans are going to receive a playoff rally towel. You can still get your tickets over at bandits.com. Game 2 will be this weekend, Sunday in Vancouver. But for more on the Bandits, stay tuned. It's coming up next. Dave Buchanan joins the show. Just 2 playoff games tonight between the NHL and the NBA. For the NHL, it's Game 6, Winnipeg and St. Louis at 8 o'clock. Game is in St. Louis. Winnipeg will advance tonight with a win, while in the NBA, it's also Game 6, Warriors-Rockets at 9. The Warriors are at home and advance with a win. The big news, though, in the NBA is that Greg Popovich stepping down as San Antonio Spurs head coach. Popovich has been the Spurs coach for 29 years. He won 5 NBA championships in that time. Pop, though, is staying with the organization. He'll be serving as the team's president, while the Spurs' next head coach will be coming from within, as longtime assistant Mitch Johnson will be assuming the role. And then in baseball, Bisons are in Iowa against the Cubs just after 8, and that game will be on our sister station, the Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Rebound out in front. Bird got a couple of shots, had a rebound on his own. Here's an outlet pass for Buffalo in the break now for Nick Weiss. Weiss coming in strong, scores!
Is that from last week? San Diego? The Bandits and Vancouver tonight in the playoffs. 7 o'clock pregame here on WGR. Buffalo 5, San Diego 4 last Friday night in a single elimination first round. Dave Buchanan on the West Her Hotline. Dave, what kind of box lacrosse game ends 5-4?
A really exciting one, Mike. It was electric despite the low scoring. It was, especially from where I stand, but it was very good. Both goaltenders were on their game. Both defenses were excellent. And, luckily Buffalo held on the entire second half without scoring to come away with the win.
I watched the whole thing. The goal at right before halftime, right before, 0.1, to make it 5-2 ends up being the difference as they don't score a single time in the second half. Pretty good.
Yeah, and I thought the offense did an excellent job. Even though they didn't score in the second half, there was a lot of stretches in the second half where they controlled the ball. They got second, third, fourth chances with loose balls and were able to kill a lot of clock in that third and fourth quarter. And I think that was a big reason why they won last week. I didn't think the offense played poorly. Maybe they didn't convert on their chances as much as they would have liked, but I never sat there thinking, the offense is having a bad night. I never thought that.
How about this goalie, Dave? All these years, he was a part of a three-peat in Rochester, if I know that correctly, Vince, and now he's going for the same thing here. Up there in age, but still a game like last week is just pretty stellar.
Yeah, it's funny. He's the last guy on the team that's older than I am, and it's only by about 3 months. At age 42, he turns 43 next month. Wow. But Matt Vince is a specimen. He keeps his body in phenomenal shape. He's out there on the floor right now doing his pregame routine, juggling lacrosse balls and stretching, and it's always fun to watch him. But he said it in the post-game press conference last week. He's a phys ed teacher, I think in St. Catharines, and, that helps keep him young. He works with all those young athletes up there, and, he just stays in great shape, and he's phenomenal, and he's the best of all time for a reason.
I like that. So, in your opinion, are they in good enough form to take this down, a third straight title? And I know it's a ways off. And I also know that that's not necessarily always going to be predictive. You can look great in the semis and then fall flat, or vice versa, survive the semis and then take off. I don't know. What's your opinion of their chances?
They're just as good as any year that they've been in it. I find it funny. This is the first time in this stretch where they've gone to the finals every year since 2019. They're not playing the Toronto Rock in this round, so that's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And they're going up against the Vancouver Warriors team that's the hottest team in the league. Ever since they acquired Christian Delbianco from Calgary at the trade deadline in early March, that team hasn't lost a game, and they've hardly played from behind it all during that stretch. So I think this is the toughest task ahead of them. I think whether it's not to look ahead, but I think the two other teams left in the bracket, I think Buffalo can definitely take in a best of three. But I think this series is their biggest challenge, and they're going to put up a good fight. Vancouver beat this team just 5 weeks ago, 13-12, in a game where Buffalo had an 11-9 fourth quarter lead, and Vancouver came back, battled back, and then their goaltender stood on his head for the final 3 minutes to preserve the win.
Tough thing. I mean, either way, but if you lose it here, then to have to go out there and play Sunday, it's a pretty cruel schedule at times, indoor lacrosse. I mean, it's the weekends, and it's Buffalo, Vancouver. It's as far as it is, but still, like, the loser of this game, long trip and then quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's just one of the quirks of the schedule. I mean, it's weird. All four the first round matchups were all east-west, so we were almost guaranteed to have some travel headaches in the second round, and that's why the other series, Halifax, Saskatchewan, their schedule is the way it is just because of travel issues. But it is a short turnaround. Both teams will fly out either. I think the Bandits at least are all flying out tomorrow, and then right back at it on Sunday night, less than 48 hours difference. So they won't have much time to think about it. Luckily, Buffalo already has a couple back-to-back weekends under their belt this year, and they've performed pretty well in those situations.
Halifax and Saskatchewan the other side, so we're carrying the torch for the states. Yeah,
it's interesting. So many Canadian teams made the playoffs this year, and one of them wasn't the Toronto Rock, which was also surprising. That's a lot of attention north of the border on the three remaining teams.
Do you know how we're looking for tickets tonight?
It's definitely in the range of probably about 16,000 or so. The playoffs are always a tricky thing with ticket sales. I mean, I think one of the perks is people like to buy Bandits tickets well in advance. They'll buy tickets for a game in March and December and kind of plan it out versus having, a 1 week notice to get these tickets. And, people have plans going on and kids have, school sports. I know, like all the school lacrosse teams, I think are playing this weekend and things like that. So it makes it a challenge, but luckily there's a good built-in diehard fan base. So we'll be pretty full. But if anybody's looking to still go, you can still go to bandits.com/tickets and get your good seats still available for tonight.
I remember this from my days working in Rochester when it was about, like, they might not have sold the max number of season tickets, but you would not get playoff tickets in that package, and then you'd get them to the playoffs and be like, crowds would be really down, which is sort of counterintuitive. Like, that would not happen in Buffalo for the Sabres or the Bills. I mean, there'd be no question, but it's just how it is. You buy the package, and then it's just an extra financial commitment the fan has to make for the playoffs, and it's just not a given that they'll be able to make it or even interested. So I think that I'm not sure if the same logic necessarily applies across the board, but it makes sense if it does.
Yeah, and I know the Bandits. I think the first round ticket is kind of included in the season ticket package. Don't hold me to that.
Okay.
So this game was beyond the season ticket package. So, but it's still a pretty affordable, maybe compared to the Sabres or Bills. So I think they'll be well represented, and I think they'll be a good walk-up crowd. The weather's kind of iffy tonight. Maybe people want to do something indoors.
Right, Bisons are away anyway. The game last week. Last thing, Dave, watching the San Diego team, Trevor Baptiste taking faceoffs. So I've become more familiar with certain of the more bigger names in lacrosse through the outdoor game.
Yep.
And he's the faceoff god, Baptiste. Mm-hmm. And so is it Farrell for the Bandits who was up against him last? He held his own. But when I saw Baptiste, I'm like, this could be bad, because if it's like the outdoor game, most games he plays in, San Diego's going to win every faceoff. It didn't quite go that way.
No, I mean, Connor's a face-off specialist. He played in the PLL a couple seasons ago. He's been out of that league now for a couple of years. But he had faced Trevor outdoors. They had never squared off in a box setting before last week. But one of the things I like about Connor's game is he might start out slow, but he's a great learner. And usually by the second half, he'll figure out whoever he's facing, and he'll definitely do much better in the second half of the game, it seems like, especially when it's somebody new. He's going up against another strong face-off opponent tonight. Alex Stathakis from Michigan is the Vancouver face-off specialist, and Alex got the better of him when they were here 5 weeks ago. But it should be still a good battle, and having Connor gives the Bandits, that a chance on every possession and maybe try to limit runs from their opponents. Very good, Dave. Thanks for your time. Should be a great night. Yeah, looking forward to it, Mike. Hope everybody tunes in. We'll have pregame at 7 o'clock, and then face-off just after 7:30 right here in WGR. Love it. Thank you, Dave. Good to talk to you, Mike. You too. Yeah, the face-off thing in the outdoor game, if not also box, but
I watch high school lacrosse. College is the same way. Even the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League. If one player is dominant on faceoffs, that is it's the opposite of hockey in this way. It's just a huge game changer because you're getting every possession. And if you're the superior team on top of that, ball movement and finishing, you just kind of own the game. And I've seen plenty of games where it is like that, where just one team has a much superior face-off specialist, Fogo, face-off, get-off. And they just, like, I never think about lacrosse in, like, a betting sense. But I'd love to know sort of how the face-off thing tilts odds, or would, if that's even out there to bet on. Because, like, that's the thing you would want, and it's the number one thing I think you'd want to know about a matchup is face-offs. Maybe goaltending. But, hockey just means so little. Once in a while, a goal is scored directly off a face-off. Okay, good. But mostly it's just, team's going to pass the puck back and forth, and then a goal will be scored, like that. But in lacrosse, it can mean, our possession, goal. Same goal. And then, like, it's just not over that fast, but it can feel like it. All right, Bandits in Vancouver tonight. Pregame at 7 after me. This is Mike Schopp, back after this timeout on WGR. If you missed Bet Sweat's co-host Sam Panayotovich earlier today, check it out on the Odyssey app. Rewind our show. Sam gave out some numbers for tomorrow's Kentucky Derby. It was 6 numbers. So he goes pretty hard, but 8, 3, 9, 14, 18, 21. Kentucky Derby numbers get pretty high, too, 21. Anyway, if you miss Sam, he's always a delight on the Odyssey app. Thinking about so much time spent on Brandon Beane this week, and maybe it's a concerted effort, maybe it's not. I don't suggest that because he has been exactly like hard to find. I mean, he's done plenty of media over the years. He's had a busy week, though, locally and nationally. And I'm thinking about, the profile. How big really is his profile? It's a memorable name. They've had a lot of success. I think he might be because it's been so long now, too, he might be one of the GMs an average football fan could name. I mean, how many current general managers can you name? I follow it pretty closely. I don't know if I could name half. It might be about half. I can think of guys that have come and gone, but like even the Jets now, I don't know who it is. Teams that have made recent changes. I was going through the whole league earlier in my head, and in only one division can I name them all because I couldn't think of the Jets, and I still don't know it. AFC North, I might need a minute on the Bengals. It's the only division where I know I can name them all is the NFC North. Brad Holmes, Gutekunst, Adolfo Mensa, and Ryan Poles. Like that one I got. I don't know why. They 3 of the teams last year were really good. Gutekunst has been kind of notorious with all the Rodgers stuff. Brad Holmes is in your face. I mean, the draft war room stuff with him, and they've won a lot, and the Bears have picked first overall. So that one I got, and Jerry Jones, does he count? He owns the team. How many can you name, do you think, that don't own the team or even do? He might be the only. He's got to be the only one who owns the team, and is the GM. He is the GM, right? Or his
he is the GM.
Son. He is. Still, like if it is the son, that's dad though, and the owner, so it's probably close to the same thing. Veach in Kansas City, DaCosta in Baltimore. I can name him. Not all of them though. Les Snead. NFC North was the only division where I knew I could do them all. Whatever that's worth. So, I don't know. Means nothing, maybe, but like Beane, I wonder where he ranks kind of on a Q scale, Q rating for, GMs around the NFL. Again, the Bandits play tonight at home in the playoffs against Vancouver. Pre-game at 7, and then they get started at 7:30 downtown. Thanks again to Dave Buchanan for stopping by for a preview. I mentioned Sam. Also, Sal Capaccio was on with me earlier. We'll check in with Sal next, have that conversation. The calendar coming up, the schedule, rookie minicamp, and a look back at the draft one more time here as we close out the week. That's next. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.